is Stephen K. Bannon, the Victory Sessions. I'm joined this segment by Chairman and CEO of the Breitbart companies, Andrew Breitbart, and the new editor-in-chief of Breitbart.com, Joel Pollak. I think that was actually announced on the He Hewitt show the other day. But we have the first in-studio visit from the new editor-in-chief, Joel Pollak. By the way, I got to talk to my production staff. Johnny Kahn, Andrew Breitbart shows up from Florida. Poor Johnny Kahn, American Heart, gets kicked to the curb, and we've got like the James Bond driving beat of Andrew Breitbart. Andrew, you're just back from Florida. You were there for the debate.
By the way, Joel Pollak is Breitbart's minder. He's in control of my.
That would be Joel.
We've determined I need one, so we gave him a title.
And hold on, I want to make one announcement too. We are actually joined by the lovely airman Julia Pollak, back from North Island. She's active duty in the United States Navy
Reserve.
United States Navy Reserve. I was one time in the United States Navy Reserve, so you can mess with a lot of things, but don't mess with my R, as they say in the reserves. Andrew, back from Florida. Give us we just had Keith Appel on telling us about his perception of Perry in the debates. We'd like to hear, you were actually on the ground. You were front row, I think.
I was right behind Governor Scott. I was sitting next to his pregnant daughter and her husband, and I was with the Scotts. Lovely family, the first family of Florida. I'd met him a few years ago at my first and only pheasant hunt.
Andrew,
I'm a West Side. I'm a LA West Side Jew.
Andrew Breitbart with a weapon. That's a scary thought.
No, it's not my expertise, but
does not sound like Israeli Defense Force to me.
I know. I met Governor Scott, and they asked me to come down to speak at P5, President 5, I think is what they call the event, right before the straw poll event happened. So I spoke to about 3,000 to 4,000 people right before they took the straw poll in which Herman Cain won. And all I can say is Thursday night it was clear to me that Herman Cain was the winner. And at the debate, yep. Afterwards, throughout the convention hall, at the hotel, I was staying at the Peabody, right where the event was happening. And you could just tell there were so many Cain supporters, enthusiastic Cain supporters there. And when you're there for 2.5 days, people are paying attention to what the media is paying attention to, and they're realizing that the media was trying to set up that the two front runners are Perry and Romney.
Right. They wanted their meme to be it's a two-man race. Everybody else is on the card.
And this is going to be an election cycle where the people, the Tea Party, have taken back the narrative and are not going to allow for not just the left media, but even the right media to determine who the candidate is going to be.
Fox News had determined that it was a two-man race. Everybody else was on the card.
100%. And everywhere I've gone in the Tea Parties, they like Herman Cain. They like his authenticity, and he reminds me of Ronald Reagan. His sunny optimism. You can tell he's got Reagan's fight in him and that he believes what he believes and he says what he says and he means what he says. But he has that optimism that Americans want to pick for a president. Yeah. And they're watching Romney and Perry with prepared hits on each other that was built into the event the way that skirmishes are built into reality shows. And the American people, this was the third...
Right, reality TV having these skirmishes built into the plot that have to happen. You're saying that's exactly
it was. Everybody knew it was going to happen because this was the third debate in which this was set to happen, and people were sick of it. It was the boring narrative, and it was amazing how in that debate how Cain rose above that, and people wanted to hear what he had to say on things, and I could just tell that these people have gotten so unbelievably media savvy, is that the people of Florida or up in New Hampshire where I was the week before that.
You mean common citizens.
Common citizens understand that the pathway to the White House on the right is through the wall that the mainstream media has created. And they are getting savvy on how to figure out how to take the media out of the equation. And Herman Cain's win in the straw poll vote, is the biggest sign that I've seen yet that they're starting to get it.
By the way, there's not one article that I read, and maybe it was some of the bloggers I missed, but there was not one article about how the people really shattered this myth really perpetrated by the right media that it's a two-man race and nobody else counts, right? That the conservatives are represented by Perry, and then.
Well, this is also the same right media that treats the Tea Party as if it's an embarrassment when the last three elections, and there have been three elections since Barack Obama has been elected. There was the Chris Christie 2009 victory where Scott. There was also Scott Brown in 2009, and those and the governor from Virginia, I think his name is
O'Donnell.
McDonnell.
Yeah, McDonnell. Yeah.
And that was a clear victory, a post-Acorn victory that said that the Hope and Change Express had been derailed. And then with a year of the Tea Party being accused of being racist, homophobic, worst people in the history of the universe, and then 2010 happened, and that was a beating of epic proportion. And then the Anthony Weiner one a little bit less than a year after. That's three in a row. That's a trend here, that is the juggernaut that's heading towards next fall.
Let's, because I want to come back. We're here for the whole hour in studio with Andrew Breitbart and Joel Pollack. Joel is the new editor-in-chief of the Breitbart sites. I want to come back to that at the end, but along those lines, when you talk about the Tea Party, you talk about the derision of the Tea Party, even from the established right media. Joel, your article this week, the reason I want you guys to come in, this article, this email, this thing about this book that came out about Governor Palin, which speaks to issues larger than Governor Palin herself, but kind of what she represents, right, which the Tea Party, they're working in. Your article really put that in context. I want to go back to what was on the Breitbart sites. By the way, you can go to Breitbart.com and see Joel's article, and see Andrew's going to talk about in a second about this email with the author. But Joel, can you put in context what happened this week with this book that came out with Governor Palin, and then and put it in context for our audience?
Sure. Well, this morning the mainstream media is trying to disparage Herman Cain's victory by talking about how he's just a pizza guy. And in the same way, Sarah Palin was just a mayor of a small town when she was introduced to the nation. Anytime somebody comes up, they've got to knock him down by saying it's just pizza, it's just a small town.
It's not like he's just editor of Harvard Law Review, right?
Right,
That's
exactly.
different. That you have your union card then, right?
Without a single article written in the Harvard Law Review.
That's not too shabby.
Yeah,
but the context here, though, is never just about the person. It's never just about Herman Cain or Sarah Palin. It's also disparaging America and Americans. And that's what Joe McGinnis does in his book, The Rogue, which came out this week. People know Joe McGinnis. He's the guy who moved in next door to Sarah Palin, and that's why this book was controversial before it even came out. But what he does in this book is even more controversial, and aside from the email that Andrew exposed in the middle of the week, the actual book itself, if you just read it without knowing some of the backstory, it's objectionable enough in itself. He doesn't just go after Sarah Palin. He goes after Wasilla. He goes after Alaska. He goes after America.
When you say he goes after America, give me an example. We got about 1 minute before we have to go to the jump. When you say he goes after America, my view is that a small town America in the backbone of this country is not Mayberry RFD, but it's certainly not Twin Peaks, right? It's not a cesspool of sexual perversion, drug use, and all kind of maniacal behavior coupled with right-wing Christian fanaticism.
Let me tell you what he says about the Americans who like Sarah Palin. He says, she connects with that block of church-going, gun-toting, God-fearing, government-distrusting voters who, like her, might not grasp the intricacies of public policy, but who knew, doggone it, how they felt. And it's just like Obama's bitter clingers argument comes from the same place, disparaging Americans who choose something other than what the liberal elite wants them to choose.
We're going to be back in a minute. We're going to have Andrew Breitbart, Chairman CEO of Breitbart.com, and the new editor-in-chief of Breitbart sites, Joel Pollack. This is Stephen K. Bannon. The Victory Session will be back in 2 minutes. This is Stephen K. Bannon. We're back on the Victory Sessions, Talk Radio 790 KBC, Los Angeles, capital of the Pacific. I have the chairman and CEO and one of the most infamous men in America, Andrew Breitbart, as my in-studio guest, along with his minder, the new editor-in-chief, thank God, of the Breitbart sites, Joel Pollack, which I've noticed a dramatic increase in the quality of the site since Joel's been involved, and the lovely airman, Julia Pollack from North Island. Joel, you had some examples about why this book is not just an attack on Sarah Palin, why this book is an attack on small-town America and the backbone of this country.
It's an attack on a lot of different things, including women
You
in
read
politics.
it, by the way. By the way, Joel actually read the book. He
I did
read
read
the
the
book. I believe it was on Tuesday night. I think you got to bed at around 5 o'clock in the morning. You read the whole damn thing.
That wasn't reading, that was deconstructing.
It was a real page-turner because every page had little nuggets like this one. He quotes a Daily News columnist from Anchorage, quote, "There's something refreshing about Palin. She's like your high school English teacher, quite capable of scolding when necessary." And from that, McGinnis concludes, "Men with dominatrix fantasies took note." And what's interesting about the column that he quotes was that's one line out of a column. By the way, I don't know why McGinnis assumes the English teacher in the metaphor is female, but the rest of the column is a very nuts and bolts political analysis of all the people she appointed to her staff and her cabinet. It's a very technical column. But he says this is some
But
sort
derive the one sexual connotation from that and put that in there as a salacious.
So it's a non-existent sexual connotation.
Right.
Right. So this is a column in the Anchorage Daily News praising the people she was choosing for her administration in Alaska. The very next paragraph, McGinnis tells us that Sarah was peopling her administration largely with high school friends and or born-again Christians. Now, he doesn't explain really what he means by that, and of course he doesn't tell you that the article he's just quoted says exactly the opposite, that Sarah's bringing this refreshing change to government in Alaska, bringing competent people to replace the cronies.
Wow.
So
unbelievable.
you just got to unpack some of the things he does here, and you realize what motivates him is not a search for the truth about Sarah Palin. He just hates her. He knows the truth about Sarah Palin in his mind, which is that she's a terrible person, and he's going to prove it no matter how he has to do it.
Then let's go to you dropped a bomb this week, as only Andrew Breitbart, the man that brought us Tony Weiner's junk, and the meltdown of the liquidation of Acorn. Now it's Random House and Bertelsmann, its corporate parent, and you came across or were sent or got a email that was up on Joel's column. Why don't you talk to our audience about that, because it is a bombshell.
Yeah, I would say it's the closest thing you're ever going to get to an absolute smoking gun in a libel case against a public